The silence before the siren. If you think this story is intense already, you haven't seen anything yet. Subscribe, like, and stay with us, because what happens next inside these walls will leave you speechless. The sun was barely up over Marin County, and the cold fog rolled in from the San Francisco Bay like a ghost that refused to leave. From the outside, San Quentin State Prison looked like a crumbling fortress, gray walls, rusted gates, and barbed wire slicing through the morning mist. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Every sound, a clanging metal door, a distant shout, echoed like a warning. At 5:47 a.m., the silence was broken by the first siren of the day. A prisoner was missing. Officer Ramirez was the first to notice during morning count. "We're one short in Block C," he said, voice tight. "Inmate Harper, cell 209. Inmate Elias Harper wasn't just anyone. He was serving 25 years for armed robbery and assault, known among inmates as someone who never lost control. Quiet, calculating, always keeping to himself. The kind of man who didn't draw attention until he did. Within minutes, the lockdown was ordered. The heavy steel doors slammed shut across the prison, trapping everyone inside like an iron coffin. Guards searched cells, ripped apart bunks, and questioned everyone. But Harper was gone. No trace. Captain Monroe, head of internal security, didn't believe in coincidences. He'd been at San Quentin for 20 years and knew one thing for certain. No one escapes this place. Not without help. "Check the cameras," Monroe ordered. But the feed from C Block was corrupted, static, flickers of movement, then black. Something wasn't right. At 7:12 a.m., a maintenance worker found something odd in the old kitchen tunnel, a trail of fresh footprints leading to a rusted service hatch. The tunnel hadn't been used in years, sealed off after a flooding incident. Yet the lock was newly cut. Monroe followed the trail with 2 guards. The air inside was damp, stale, filled with the stench of mold and decay. The beam from Monroe's flashlight caught something on the ground, a torn piece of prison uniform, soaked in blood. And then silence. Suddenly, a faint metallic clink echoed from deeper in the tunnel. Monroe froze. "Hold your lights," he whispered. They moved forward slowly, the tunnel narrowing, until the beam revealed something that made them stop cold. A hidden chamber, walls covered with newspaper clippings about San Quentin, inmate rosters, and one haunting phrase scrawled in black marker across the wall. 24 hours is all it takes to break a man. Meanwhile, in the main yard, tension grew like wildfire. Word spread fast. Harper was gone, and rumors twisted into chaos. Some said he'd escaped through the bay. Others whispered he was still inside, hiding in the restricted sectors. Among the inmates, one man sat apart, Ray Donovan, Harper's former cellmate. A convicted fraudster with a talent for reading people. When a guard questioned him, Ray only smiled. "You think he ran?" he said softly. "No one runs from this place." "Not really." Monroe returned to the control room, his patience running thin. "Pull every backup drive. I want every second of last night reviewed." An hour later, the IT technician froze the video frame. There, just before the blackout, a shadow. A figure in a guard's uniform entering C Block at 2:03 a.m. But when they enhanced the footage, the badge number didn't match any on record. Someone on the inside had helped him. By noon, San Quentin was in total lockdown. No yard time, no visitors, no movement. The warden arrived, Warden Lyle Morgan, a man known for his clean reputation and strict order. But behind his composed face, he looked shaken. "Find Harper before sundown," he told Monroe quietly. "This doesn't leave the walls." Monroe nodded, but as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker was unfolding. At 3:18 p.m., the second siren blared. A janitor had been found unconscious near the laundry facility. His key ring was missing, and next to him, smeared on the concrete, were faint letters written in red. "He's not gone." Monroe stared at the message, his mind racing. If Harper was still here, what was he doing? And why leave messages instead of escaping? Night crept in fast. The prison lights flickered, casting ghostly glows across the walls. Guards were on edge. Every sound, every movement made them jump. But deep inside the restricted medical wing, one door was slightly open. Room 12B. A disused infirmary. Inside, a single light swung from the ceiling, illuminating a blood-stained chair. And on it, a folder marked, Inmate Psychological Evaluation, Harper, E. Monroe opened it. The first page read like a warning. Harper wasn't just any inmate. He was part of an experimental rehabilitation program, a behavioral test involving isolation and simulated escape drills. Except no one had told Monroe about it. He flipped to the last page. Scribbled at the bottom in Harper's handwriting were the words, "They made me disappear. Now I'll make them see." Outside, thunder rolled over the bay, rattling the prison windows. Monroe stood there, folder in hand, realizing something terrifying. Harper's disappearance wasn't an escape. It was a message. But when the guards checked the security room again, something new appeared on the monitors. Static flickered, then a live feed of the kitchen tunnel. Harper was standing there, looking straight into the camera, and he smiled. Then the feed went black. The man who vanished inside. The storm outside had swallowed the coast by nightfall. Thunder rolled over the San Francisco Bay, shaking the old concrete walls of San Quentin Prison like a warning from the heavens. The power flickered again and again, every blackout lasting longer than the last. Captain Monroe stood in the control room, staring at the black monitors. All feeds from C Block, D Block, and the medical wing were dead. The only screen that still worked showed the tunnel camera, the one Harper had stared into before the feed cut out. "Replay it again," Monroe ordered. The technician did, but something new appeared this time, a timestamp glitch. The feed hadn't been live when it aired. It was recorded hours before. "Someone queued this up deliberately," said Monroe, his voice cold. "He's still inside, but he wants us to think otherwise." The technician swallowed hard. "Captain, what if he's not working alone?" Monroe didn't answer. His gut already told him the truth. There was someone inside helping Harper, someone who knew the prison systems well enough to manipulate security footage, override cell doors, and erase evidence. Down in the isolation wing, Warden Lyle Morgan was pacing. His tie was loose, his patience gone. "This is spiraling," he snapped. "I've got reporters calling already. If this leaks, we'll have the governor breathing down our necks." Monroe faced him. "Then we tell the truth. Harper's disappearance wasn't an escape. It was engineered. Someone authorized a secret program involving inmate behavioral manipulation, psychological stress tests. And now it's blown up in our faces." The warden froze. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Monroe slammed the file down on his desk, Harper's evaluation folder. "Then explain this. Who signed off on this experiment? Who approved running tests that simulate fake escapes?" Morgan's silence said it all. "This was meant to push inmates to their limits," he finally said. "We wanted to understand how long a man could endure solitary confinement without breaking. Harper was chosen for his control and intelligence. But he changed. He started asking questions, demanding answers." Monroe's jaw tightened. "So you broke him?" "No," said Morgan quietly, his eyes lowering. "He broke us." At 1:14 a.m., the lights went out again. Total darkness. The emergency generators kicked in, but only half the facility powered up. In C Block, guards moved through the corridors with flashlights, beams cutting through the gloom. Every cell door was sealed, except one. Cell 209. Harper's cell. Inside, carved into the concrete wall, were new words, words that hadn't been there hours ago. "He's not the prisoner anymore." Monroe and his team swept the tunnels again, this time with full tactical gear. The tunnels were colder now, filled with the sound of dripping water. The deeper they went, the stronger the metallic smell became, like rust and blood mingled together. Halfway down, Officer Ramirez stopped. "Captain, over here." There was a door that wasn't on any blueprint. Heavy steel, with a code lock that had been recently used. Monroe motioned for his team to step back and forced it open. What they found inside made the room fall silent. It wasn't an escape tunnel. It was a surveillance chamber. Dozens of old monitors lined the walls, all showing footage from within the prison, the yard, the cells, the offices. But these weren't live feeds. They were recordings of the guards themselves, eating, sleeping, arguing. Some even showed Monroe and the warden in private meetings. Someone had been watching them. Then came the sound, faint, distorted through the speakers. Harper's voice. You lock us up for years and call it justice. But you never wonder what it does to the mind. I wanted you to see what it feels like when you're the one trapped. The monitors flickered, and a new image appeared, the warden's office. But it wasn't live. It was recorded from earlier that day. Harper was in the room, sitting in Morgan's chair, smiling. Monroe turned to Morgan, furious. You let him in there? Morgan shook his head. That's impossible. I wasn't even, he stopped. The realization hit him. The copy keycard. He had one.
How?
Because someone gave it to him. Meanwhile, in the upper tiers of D Block, Ray Donovan, Harper's former cellmate, sat in his bunk, staring at a small folded note slipped under his door. No guard saw it. He opened it slowly, reading the single sentence inside. Tell them about room 42, or you're next. Ray felt his hand shake. He'd hoped this day would never come. He called for a guard. I need to talk to Captain Monroe, he said urgently.
Now.
Minutes later, Monroe arrived at the cell. You know something, he said. Ray nodded. Harper told me things he wasn't supposed to know. About the underground testing rooms. About the guards they used as part of the control group. Monroe frowned. Control group. Ray swallowed hard. They didn't just test inmates, Captain. They tested staff. The isolation, the fake alarms, the deprivation, they wanted to see how you'd react. Harper found the files. Room 42 was where it started. Monroe's heart sank. And where is this room? Ray looked up, eyes wide with fear. It's right beneath the warden's office. By dawn, the storm had calmed, but inside San Quentin, chaos had only begun. Monroe led a small team through the administration wing. The blueprints didn't show anything under the office floor, but when they removed the rug, they found it, a steel trapdoor with a biometric scanner. Morgan's hands trembled as he unlocked it. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air was heavy, stale, thick with chemicals. Fluorescent lights flickered on, revealing a hidden lab filled with files, psychological charts, and video reels labeled with inmate numbers. On one table lay a recording device, still running. Monroe pressed play. Harper's voice filled the room again.
Calm.
Controlled. 24 hours inside San Quentin. That's all it takes to see who's really imprisoned. The walls don't keep the criminals in. They keep the truth out. Morgan turned pale. He's going to expose this. Everything. Monroe's eyes went cold. He already has. Suddenly, the alarm blared again. The monitors in the lab flickered on, showing live feeds from across the prison. Every inmate was standing at their cell door, staring into the cameras. No one spoke. No one moved. And on every screen, a single phrase appeared. 24 hours is over. Then the power died. Darkness swallowed San Quentin whole. The last hour. The prison was dead silent. No hum of electricity. No buzz of fluorescent lights. Just the heavy rhythm of rain hitting the roof and the slow, mechanical click of emergency locks disengaging one by one. Captain Monroe stood frozen in the hidden lab beneath the warden's office. The alarm had stopped, but something else had begun. A deep, mechanical groan from somewhere in the walls, like the prison itself was waking up. What the hell is that sound? One of the guards whispered. Warden Morgan didn't answer. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the lab computer's command interface. The screen showed a new file that hadn't been there before. A single word blinked in red. Execution. Then, below it, a timer appeared. 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Monroe leaned closer. Is that what I think it is? Morgan's voice cracked. It's a fail-safe system. It locks down every gate and cuts ventilation. It's meant to prevent a full-scale riot. Monroe's face went pale. You're saying if that timer hit 0? Morgan nodded. Everyone inside, guards, inmates, dies. Across the cell blocks, the prisoners had realized something was wrong. The doors weren't locked anymore. They stood open, creaking like old bones. Some inmates stayed frozen in place, afraid to move. Others whispered, wondering if this was freedom or a trap. In D block, Ray Donovan pressed himself against the wall, clutching Harper's note. "This is what he meant," he muttered. Room 42 wasn't an experiment. It was the trigger. Then, through the silence, a voice echoed through the prison's loudspeaker system. Harper's voice, recorded and distorted. "You can't cage a man's mind. You can only watch what happens when it finally escapes." Every speaker across the facility crackled with that same phrase, repeating again and again. Every monitor blinked to life, showing Harper walking through the corridors, recorded footage from days ago, but looped to make it look live. "Captain," the technician said, panic rising in his voice, "these feeds are set to overwrite the security system. We can't stop them." Monroe clenched his jaw. He planned this. He's still controlling everything, from inside or out. Morgan stared at the screen, muttering to himself. He wanted to destroy the system, to show the world what we did. Monroe turned sharply. "Then we shut him down." 42 minutes and 11 seconds. The timer kept ticking. Monroe and his team moved through the dark corridors, flashlights slicing through the pitch black. Inmates whispered from their cells as they passed, some pleading for help, others taunting them like ghosts behind bars. Then Monroe stopped. The tunnel air had grown colder again, and there, on the far wall, was a new message written in dust and grime. "The real prison is upstairs." He raised his flashlight, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft that led upward. Morgan hesitated. "That leads to the old execution chamber. It hasn't been used in decades." "Then that's where we'll find him," Monroe said. Inside the execution chamber, the air felt different. Charged, electric, haunted by the memory of too many final breaths. The chair still stood in the center, rusted with time, wires coiled like veins. And there, sitting calmly in that very chair, was Harper. At least, it looked like him. His face was pale, his hands folded neatly on his lap. But his eyes were blank, unseeing. Monroe raised his weapon. "Don't move." Harper didn't. He didn't even breathe. The warden stepped closer, shining a light on the body. "Captain, he's been dead for hours." The team fell silent. On the table beside the chair was a small recorder, still blinking red. Monroe pressed play. Harper's voice filled the room once more, this time calm, steady, almost peaceful. "If you're hearing this, it means you found me. It means the experiment is over. But you'll never shut it down. Because San Quentin isn't a prison made of steel, it's a prison made of fear. And you built it yourselves." Monroe's pulse raced. He turned to the warden. "How long has he been dead?" Morgan whispered. "Since yesterday morning. We never noticed the swap. Someone used his body as a distraction." Before he could finish, the recorder beeped, and the walls around them began to shake. 5 minutes. The timer was still running. Monroe shouted into his radio. "Evacuate all personnel. Get the inmates out now." But static was the only reply. They ran back down the stairs into the lab, trying to access the control system. The screens were filled with static and the same looping words Harper had left behind. "Now you understand." The technician's voice cracked. "We can't stop it. The mainframe's locked. The system's running off an external server, outside the prison network." Morgan's eyes widened. "Outside? Where?" "San Francisco. Downtown. The state corrections headquarters." Monroe realized it instantly. Harper's plan wasn't to destroy San Quentin, it was to expose it. The lockdown sequence was a broadcast trigger. When the timer hit 0, every surveillance file, every experiment, every cover-up would go public. Harper had sacrificed himself to make sure no one could stop it. 3 seconds. The monitors flashed white. A blinding surge of light filled the lab. Every hard drive, every computer, every circuit overloaded in a flash of sparks and smoke. Then silence. The timer hit 0. Outside, sirens wailed across the bay. News vans began to appear at the prison gates. And on televisions across California, a breaking news banner appeared. Leaked footage. Inside San Quentin, illegal experiments, secret surveillance, and human rights violations. Hours later, as dawn broke over the prison, Monroe stood in the yard among the exhausted inmates. The facility was silent again, no alarms, no screams, just the sound of the wind blowing through the razor wire. Ray Donovan walked up to him slowly. He did it, didn't he? Monroe nodded.
Yeah.
He made the world watch. Ray looked up at the old towers. Then maybe that's freedom. Monroe turned away, glancing at the empty horizon. Or maybe it's just another kind of prison. That night, in the warden's office, a small light blinked on the dead computer screen. A single message appeared. 24 hours inside was never about me. It was about you. J. Harper. They thought he was gone, but sometimes the ghosts that haunt a prison aren't dead. They're digital. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe, because the next case will make you question everything you know about justice.